Hello and welcome back, and in this video we're going to be talking about buttons in SwiftUI. So let's go ahead and get started. So basically, let me first clean up this a little bit, and just gonna have text for now. Okay, all right. Okay, so buttons. Buttons are basically control to initiate action in SwiftUI. Now, button view provides a label and action, and the action can be basically a function or a closure which does something when user taps on the button. So the button view takes basically your action and execute it on your behalf when something happens. Now, button view takes the space, only the enough space that is needed to show its content, and basically it has many customization options. Okay, so let's go ahead and start exploring buttons with an example. The easiest way to create a button is by providing a string label and a closure for action. Okay, so we'll make our button increment a counter value and show the counter basically reading the text view. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a state variable. And then we are going to create our button. So let's go ahead and put it inside a navigation stack. And we're going to create our V stack. And let's create a text view. Button was tapped. And we're going to use a string interpolation. And we're going to say counter times. Okay. Then we're going to create our button, and we're going to use the simplest form of button that we can create, and just have it called click me. Okay, and then we're going to simply take our counter, increment it by 1, and that's about it. While we have the navigation stack, let's go ahead and add a title. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and refresh our view. And as soon as the screen loads, we should see basically a text view and a button. And button should be clickable, where we can actually tap on the button and just increment our counter. So it's almost there. There we go. So this is our button. And let's go ahead and click on it. And as you can see, our counter is increasing as we are tapping on a button. So here we are passing an action as a closure, but we can call a function instead and pass the name of the function instead of basically just defining the closure. Okay, so it's a different variation of the button type initializer that we're going to use for that. Before we actually create our other variation, let's go ahead and create a private function, and we're going to call it button click. Okay, and we are simply going to take this, put it in here, take all of this out, and going to say action button click. Okay, and let's go ahead and try this one out. Now, since our button click is not expecting any parameters to be passed in, we don't have to put the parentheses here. The reason is because this is already an action. It knows that whatever is passed in, it has to be a function, and as long as that condition satisfies, we are fine. So let's go ahead and try this out. And as you can see, our button is working as expected. Okay, so we're making good progress. Now let's go and talk a little bit more about buttons. So buttons provide another overload. Now this overload takes a label as a parameter, and label basically can be any view that you want to have. So we have a flexibility to create a completely custom button in that case. All right, and that's what we are going to do here. So let's go ahead and change the way our button looks. So we're gonna type button, and let's go ahead and take a look at a few options. So these are all the overloads that button provides, and as you can see, there are a lot of them. The one that we are interested in is this one, which takes an action and a label. Okay, so we're gonna take Xcode suggestion, and we're gonna modify this a little bit. So we're gonna provide the label. The action that's being passed in is the same action that we have actually defined inside the function. Okay, so for the label, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a VStack. Inside the VStack, we're gonna create an image, and this is going to be a SF symbol based image. So let's go ahead and use system name overload, and we're gonna say arrow triangle dot up dot fill. Okay, so as you can see, our triangle is shown up, and we're gonna have a text here, tap to count. And then let's go ahead and add some padding, some foreground style. So let's give it a maybe a white for foreground, and then we're gonna give it a background, and the background is going to be color.orange in rect with corner radius. Let's give it a maybe a 5-point corner radius. Okay, so there we go. We have our button, and its UI is definitely much better than what it was before. So let's go ahead and see if it still works. So as you can see, it's still doing the job that it's supposed to do, which is incrementing the counter. Now you can create two buttons here, and increment and decrement. Okay, so we're gonna refactor this. So let's go ahead and say refactor, rename, and we're gonna rename this as increase counter. Okay, and let's go ahead and create another function here, decrease counter. Okay, and we will cut this out, create an H stack, put it inside that, create another copy, call this decrease counter here, and we're gonna say down, and let's give it a different color, maybe mint, and tap to count down. Okay, tap to count. There we go. That's good enough. Okay, so we are incrementing in both, so let's go ahead and decrement this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and increment, and we can decrease. There we go. So you can see that you have a nice looking step controller that you have created basically just using purely buttons. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and keep going. Now, if we don't want to include the layout view inside layout inside this, where is it? Right here. So if you don't want to create this guy right here, what you can do is you can create a view out of it. You can create a separate view, and that view can be called directly here, and that is usually a recommended practice for reusability. So what you do is you create your view. So for example, we will create one right here. Once again, a function at view builder func button body. Okay, and now it needs to take a few things. Okay, so first thing is going to be it's going to take some sort of action. It's gonna take a label. Actually, you know what? Action we don't need. We are just talking about this guy. So we're gonna say whether the button is counting up or down. Those are the only two cases that we have, right? So we're gonna say, we're gonna create this as parameterized. So we're gonna say is up, and we're gonna just set it as Boolean. This will return some sort of view, okay? And now what we are going to do is we are going to take this part right here and put it right here, and we can say is up, then we're gonna put up here, otherwise down. There we go. Okay, so up and down logic is handled here, and we are reusing the code, and we're gonna do something similar here. So we're gonna say is up, then color dot orange, otherwise color dot mint, and rest everything stays same. And now we can say, we can call button body is up true. So this is an up button, and this is the down button, so we're gonna set it as false. And now you have basically your counter, but it's now reusing the view. It's basically a much better code than you wrote earlier, because this one gives you flexibility, but if you want to change any style, you can actually change it right here. Okay, now while we are talking about the style, button actually provides button style modifier, and this button style modifier actually is used to style buttons. Okay, so let's go ahead and check them out. So we're gonna apply this. Let's go ahead and apply it on individual buttons. So we're gonna say button style, and we have a few options. Let's try with plain. Okay, so we have plain. Now because we are actually setting our own style, it's not gonna do much. Let's try it borderless and see if there's any effect. So as you can see, it's not having any effect. Now the reason is we are defining our own UI in this case. Let's go ahead and change this and say text up, and let's set this one as down. Okay, all right, I'll wait for, okay, cool. So let's go ahead and try this, and let's say we want border prominent. Okay, now that should actually give us a different view. All right, we're gonna apply a different style here. So let's say we're gonna provide it as bordered. Okay, so as you can see, now we have a different style that our buttons are adopting. Okay, I want to try something. Let's see if this has any effect. Yeah, it does actually. It was just the wrong style maybe that we were using. Let's try it again. Yeah, so there is, like, you know, a bit of style that's been applied, and so we can actually use this with custom style as well. It was just, you know, the plain and the borderless, they pretty much look same as the existing UI. Okay, so these are, like, you know, button style options that you can try out. Now buttons also provide roles. So the roles are basically a way to provide a description of button's purpose. For example, if button is in a destructive role, that means it is there to cancel an action or close a form. That can be indicated using the role of the button, and we can define that role while we are initializing the button. Okay, so it is another overload. So let's go ahead and look at that that other overload. So what we're going to do is we are going to comment this out and create our new button. Okay, and we're going to start with the role, and we have role, action, and label, all three of them. Let's go ahead and try this, and we are going to define the role for this one as destructive. Okay, and then we're gonna have our action and the label. So first one is action. We're gonna just say increase counter is the action, and text up as the role. Sorry, text up as the label. I set the button style. Button style, and let's give it border prominent. Okay, so as you can see, our button is red, indicating that this is destructive in a destructive role. Now, if you change this to be cancel, it actually adopts the default behavior, which is like, basically the default value for the role when you don't define it. Okay, so those are two options that you have for button style. So now one thing I want to show you is, like, let's say if you do destructive and you just do bordered. Okay, it is a little bit less prominent, where just the font itself, or like the text of the UI itself is red tint color. Okay, so if the other red, which is border prominent, is too much, then we can use the border. Okay, all right, so along with the button style that are predefined, actually, before we talk about that, let's talk about control style. So we also have control style, control size modifier, which actually can be used to change the amount of padding the button can have. Okay, so let's say you say control size, and you define the amount of padding, and you have, like, a few options. So you have, like, a large, which increases, like, the area of the button, and you can actually have extra large, which wow, this is unexpected. Okay, extra large makes it rounded. That's strange. Okay, there we go. So it's actually increasing the space, but yes, it is actually for some reason making it rounded. I have no idea why. Maybe it has something to do with the border prominent. We have small, which actually takes less space. Let me go back and change the text. So I'm gonna say small, and it basically reduces the amount of space around the button. So there is a default value, and you also have, like, mini size button, which is like, the tiny button that you can show, like, for tags and stuff like that. Okay, so interactive tags and stuff. Okay, so those are, like, basically button style and control size. Now you have tint. Tint is another modifier that is used to change the appearance of the button. Okay, so let's go ahead and try tint, and we're gonna try with mint. So as you can see, now our button has changed. Even though it has a destructive role, actually change the way it appears. So you can control how your button actually looks like in different conditions using, like, applying the tint color. Okay, applying the tint modifier. Okay, now tint modifier looks a little bit different. You can actually try out button border shape as well. button border shape, and you can actually set how you want your button to look like. So let's say we want to look at like a capsule, which in case of mini is already like that. So let's go ahead and take that out, or I'll actually comment this out, and let's make it look like a circle, something different. Okay, so this is what we get, like, you know, a circular button, right? You can achieve the same effect using background modifier as well. So that's your button shape. Now you can disable button using the disable modifier, and this modifier is basically used when you want to have something that actually only enables when certain condition is true. For example, it could be where you have a bunch of validations on the form, and once the validations all the validations have been passed, in that case your buttons button changes for user to interact with, right? We can actually simulate this by creating a separate button, and we're going to create first a state private var enable button. Okay, and we're going to set initially as false. Now let's go ahead and set this as disabled, and we're gonna tie it to enable button. Okay, now we're gonna create another button, and I'm gonna call this enable, and this is just going to toggle the enable button state. Okay, so right now, okay, so this is okay, so because it is disabled, let's go ahead and opposite. Okay, there we go. Now it is correct. So enable, and now button is enabled, and let's go ahead and change this. Actually, let's call it is enabled. That's a better way to call it. Is enabled. Disabled if it's not enabled, right? And is enabled. I have it in the clipboard. If it is enabled, we call it disable. Otherwise, we say enable. There we go. Okay, so we should start off as disabled state. Okay, we should start off as disabled state. We cannot interact with the button. We should enable it, then we can interact with it. We can disable the button again, and there we have it. You have your button basically disabled, no longer interactable. So you can see, like, you know, how you can use this as, like, you know, a controlling mechanism to make sure when user has entered all the information that you need to show, or user needs to validate, then only you basically enable your submit button for the form and stuff like that. Okay, all right, with that we have reached the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video.